what happened between Europe and America, again, Europe, I'm referring to the Western government, is that they frame a situation where they, the Europeans, are helping Africa for over 400 years.
This is why it is very important that blackness was produced in the way it was, to justify, right, this violence and this taking, to take away the humanity from certain people. And how are you helping people for 400 years? Well, because more than helping, you are taking something for 400 years. And if helping is your excuse, you need that excuse to keep going. So keep helping them, in quotes, for 400 years. What's happening to their gold, their diamonds, their cobalt, their all of these minerals? What's happening to that? Yeah, we're helping them. It's their problem and their corrupt governments. That's the issue.
Of immigration that many European politicians are not ready to open up to their people, which is the idea that the immigrant is a villain, the immigrant is a criminal, the immigrant is a rapist, the immigrant is a devil. But there is one thing they haven't told their population, that their economy, their system need this immigrant. They haven't said it, but this is the truth. This is why there is this systemic organization to make sure that the immigrant comes here. But you see, I think there is an error in the European idea of life. This idea that I must take what belongs to you and I will look for a way to justify it. But what if we could rethink that and say, okay, what you have, I need it. Could you give me part of it? I will give you this. So that this will become business. In that you give me something, I give you something. But do you know that for over 400 years, the relationship between European, okay, when I say European, I usually make this clarification that by European, I'm referring to Western power, and this includes the United States, because what will later become the United States are the Europeans who ran away from here to form that part of the land. And the way England treats Africa is not different from the way America treats Africa, because they are blood brothers. They are the same people, including Canada. So when I say European and Africa, this is what I'm referring to. So these kind of people are not ready to do a fair trade. A fair trade will mean that in Africa, they need resources. They will come to meet the African government and say, I need your resources. Can you give me a certain amount of resources that you have? I will give you a certain amount of resources that I have. This will be a fair trade. This is how humanity have always been functioning. Because nobody have always have it all, but we have always been trading. But what happened between Europe and America, again, Europe, I'm referring to the Western government, is that they frame a situation where they, the Europeans, are helping Africa for over 400 years. They don't take anything from Africa. They are just helping. They are helping in the name of missionary, in politics, in NGO, which all of them, actually, they are the same. They are just helping. But how can you be helping the people for over 400 years?
I love that. I love that. You know, first, I think with what you're saying, it makes sense. You know, this idea of you give me something, I give you something. This idea of if I need something, I will politely ask you for it. And then we come up with an arrangement for a fair trade. But you see, that type of situation is only possible when both parties see each other as people. So it comes back to personhood. You see, if already I'm not seen as a person, that's a problem. Because why would I go and literally this would some of the language that has been used historically, why would I go and negotiate with a monkey for a banana? You see, I just go and I take it. Because the monkey has no concept of self or value, no society, no history, no culture. This is why it is very important that Blackness was produced in the way it was, to justify, right, this violence and this taking, to take away the humanity from certain people in order to give access to resources, right? Actually, it didn't give them access to resources. It gave them access to killing with impunity, without punishment on their own side, from their own people back in Europe. You could go and do whatever you want if they are not people. And better yet, if you are helping them to become people, then you certainly deserve, because that's the trade you're giving them, right? You're giving them humanity and civilization and religion. And what's a little gold, if that's the case. But that's the constant idea of we are helping, we are helping, we are helping. But again, how are you helping people for 400 years? Well, because more than helping, you are taking something for 400 years. And if helping is your excuse, you need that excuse to keep going. So keep helping them, in quotes, for 400 years. What's happening to their gold, their diamonds, their cobalt, all of these minerals? What's happening to that? Yeah, we're helping them. It's their problem and their corrupt governments. That's the issue. It's a very simple fallacy that's there and that continues. And I think also one big thing that helps it continue is failure to separate ourselves from these categories. If I can no longer separate myself from Europe, like I cannot distinguish between me and Europe, right, as a person, then I must now believe in what Europe is doing. And any attack, in quotes, on Europe is an attack on me. Because now I believe that I am the nation state. So even in the US, when people are talking about race and things, right, as certain Senate bills are being passed in the government, there's this idea that went around of we don't want to make this young generation feel bad for being white and so forth. And I think to myself, how much do you identify with America in order for that to be a thing? Because I know if there's something wrong with my government in Zimbabwe, that's not Tawanda. I can speak openly about historical situations where my government has done wrong, where my own ancestors have done wrong, and I still maintain my integrity. I have no problem with that, right? And when people would say, Zimbabwe did this, I'll say, no, those people did that then. I am Tawanda. I am still Zimbabwean, but I'm also separate. But now, for some reason, in this European ego, it's hard to separate the two, who they are and what was done by their ancestors, because apparently those two things are the same for them. And I find that very strange and very interesting, But then I also find people who fight over the results of soccer teams very interesting as well, when your identity is so much assumed by something else to that extent. So when people say things about Africa and so forth, I can say, yes, I've studied the history and the politics and so forth, but I also know who I am. And as an African, I can make my own decisions. But Europeans seem to have a challenge doing that in ways that I find very intriguing.